We're recording. Everybody's good. All right. Welcome, everyone, to another episode of Sherwin-Williams Pro Plus Business Training Series. We're so excited today. I'm your host, Christine Rich. I'm the Res Repaint Marketing Director for Sherwin-Williams. And today I have my guest co-host, Jeff Winter. Jeff, say hi. Tell everybody who you are.
Hey, Christine. Jeff Winter, Vice President of Segment Marketing here at Sherwin-Williams. Great to be with you today.
Jeff's a veteran, so he knows all the things. And then equally as excited, we've got probably our most requested guest so far, Nick Slavik. You know Nick, he is a master craftsperson, entrepreneur. He's the president of PCA and, dare I say, a social media darling in the industry.
I think you're too kind. I'm just a simple house painter from flyover country.
Yeah. Well, thank you for being here today, Nick. We know how very busy you are, and we're really excited. Nick and I were at a PCA event a couple weeks ago talking about getting ready for 2024, all the things that are coming our way. And we started talking about some of the big industry trends that we're seeing. And we had a great conversation, and I wanted to know, what are you noticing? What are you seeing in the industry? And what are you doing to prepare? So before we get into that, as a reminder, this portion of the webinar is pre-recorded, but we will be back live with Nick to answer your questions right after our conversation. Feel free to use the chat to put your questions and comments in, and we'll get to those shortly. So Nick, I'm going to pass it over to you if you want to share your screen and take it away.
Yeah, so I have a very unique sort of window on the industry. Obviously, I'm connected with you guys. You guys have immense amount of data and perspective. You're connected not only in the US, but worldwide. That's sort of at the top-down kind of global look. For me, being a house painter from Minnesota, I'm connected with a whole bunch of business owners from across North America. Because of my show, Ask a Painter Live, too, immense amount of people contact me, and we discuss the inner workings of their business and their personal lives. And then sprinkle on top of that, the Painting Contractors Association. I'm the current board chair, and I travel around to all these events, which we were at, and amazing things are going on. So I have this weird data set, and it's not anecdotal about what's going on in the industry. So I'm going to present some data and give you guys my perspective from this, and it kind of where we are, where we're going, and things like that. And it makes me very excited to do this because, as you guys know, feelings are one thing, and making large sweeping decisions based off feelings alone is not a great strategy. You need to sprinkle in some data, and I can sprinkle in a weird data set. So
Love it.
all right. So at the end of every year, I sit down with some industry peers, some officers from the board of directors of the PCA, and we update some industry statistics. And we're gathering up the data right now, and we're about to make that update to the statistics. And my feeling is that we're going to see the biggest bump in productivity, in professionalization that we've seen. We've been seeing it anecdotally throughout the year. So I'll present the current data. I can speculate on what it's going to be in the next couple months. Historically, if you just look at, the size of our industry, the amount of businesses, the average paint business in the United States in the residential sector is 1 to 1.5 people. So it's basically a human with maybe a summer helper. So that's a deeply fragmented industry, and the odds of them having fully developed HR systems, legal, standard operating procedures, accountability things like that are not high. So what we have to understand about our industry is that when I travel across the country, and I was one of these, I'm a master craftsperson. I'm a very good, fast painter. I could not find a professional business to work at that would pay me appropriately, take care of me, and be professional. So I had to start my own. And theoretically, 99% of our entire industry is people like me who are really good painters that need a good home. We're forced to start our own businesses. So what we're finding out there is our industry is actually really good at painting. We're not as good as running businesses. And so that's where things like the PCA and Ask a Painter and then assets from you guys come in as well too. So I think we're addressing the market appropriately to bring the business acumen up to make the lives of our people better.
Honestly, Nick, that's why we started the Sherwin-Williams Pro Plus Business Training Series, because of exactly what you're talking about. It's one thing to be really great at your craft, but running a business is something else. And wanting to have conversations with folks like you was really important. So.
Well, and what's really interesting is that you guys know this because you're professionals, but it's not obvious to a lot of tradespeople out there that the technician in the business is not normally the same human as the business owner. right? And those are typically separate people, separate personalities, separate risk and reward. But in our industry, those people are forced to come together in that. And so that's where the support of Sherwin, the PCA, and people like myself out there are addressing the actual needs, hoping to change these numbers. We do not want this, right? Because a couple other statistics, paint businesses typically only last 1 to 3 years, which is sad, right? We invest our hearts and our souls into this beautiful craft, and going out of business and having money problems and human problems and client problems can make this beautiful craft that we love seem not as fun anymore. And then you sprinkle on top of that, the average paint business owner takes home $43,000 a year. And for the risk, for the skill, for the thoughtfulness we put into this, that's not fair. But with professionalization and help from professionals like you, I think we can make a big move in the industry. And I bet when we update these statistics later on, we're going to see a movement in those numbers. This, the silver tsunami, this is not just the trades, right? This is a nationwide, maybe even worldwide thing where we have a very aging population. And especially in the trades, it seems to bifurcate between very experienced, very much higher age, and brand new. And there's not that great middle section to take up the slack between those things. So basically, you know, between stats that you guys help me with, other industry partners help me with, it feels like we're circulating around somewhere between 20 to 30% of all the trades, not just painting industry, are probably going to be gone in the next 5 to 10 years. And those are the people with the most experience. Those are the people with the most acumen, the most history in our industry. And if we don't backfill, if we don't have that continuity between our most experienced and our least experienced, there could be this huge knowledge gap over the next few decades here. So me and a bunch of other business owners are already trying to find ways to address this. But this isn't just, I mean, I would say 10 years ago, I don't know how you guys feel, but 10 years ago, the trades had the stigma of nobody's getting into the trades, right? All these kids are going into college. And the problem is now, after the pandemic, it doesn't feel like anybody's getting into anything. I mean, everybody's struggling with labor. So I think we're all in this together now. And it's sort of like the playing field has been leveled. And if the painting industry can make a great value proposition, I think it's our game to win, right?
Absolutely. So how do we do that?
Nick, let me add one thing too on the silver tsunami. So that's one of the macroeconomic forces that makes the industry so attractive. So you've got two things, right? You mentioned folks are aging out of the industry, but the other part of that is it's an aging population that doesn't want to do the painting themselves. They want to pay a contractor to do that work. So it really makes the industry really, really attractive. I know you're going to talk about how do we maximize that.
No, I agree. And listen, when we start, you know, remember years ago, Jeff, when we used to go to these industry conferences, people are like, ooh, millennials, what do we do with these people? Well, all the millennials are 25 to 40 now. Like they are now our clients. They don't want to do any of this either, it seems. So it's like, and then you look at Gen Z below that, and it's not a negative stereotype, but these younger generations are super professional. They don't find themselves taking on home projects, but anecdotally from my thing, like they had in years past. So, I mean, it is, like you said, it's always easy, especially as pessimistic house painters, to think of all these data and statistics as these negative sort of black clouds. You know, you shake your head because every one of these is a major opportunity. And it's arguably like, when you want to talk American dream stuff, like building something from nothing, North American dream stuff, honestly, the trades and the painting industry are wild. And we can get into that too. But like right now, it is absolutely amazing. I've never been more optimistic or happy about our industry.
Yeah.
And so one of the ways that I find that me and a lot of other paint businesses from across the country are solving this is, like, we knew a decade ago that we have to make our own because we can only follow the data. You put an Indeed ad out for an experienced painter that shares your core values, and the statistical probability that you'll find one is almost zero. You know, at any one time, when you look through the industry stats, even in Minnesota, maybe there's, you know, a few thousand painters in Minnesota. And our unemployment rate right now is 2% or less in my county. So what's the chances that 2% of those few thousand painters are within my geographical area, looking at Indeed and want to go work with me? And it's I mean, it's almost statistically improbable. So starting a decade ago, me and a bunch of other business owners, we understood that we need to train. And this isn't just W-2 employees. This is subcontracting, trade partners, hybridized models of full-time, part-time labor, where honestly, it's the decent human being theory. And I think all businesses do this, which is find good people, have an insanely robust training system, because we're going to have to make our own. That's just the way of the future now. Yeah, and we, at least in my business, we do a lot of apprenticeship. We do a lot of other stuff like that too. So, and that kind of goes into the next thing, which is this hybridization, which is when I started off 30 years in the industry, there was really only W-2 employees in the painting industry, right? There's unions, there's other things too, but really, when you called a house painter, or when you looked at the biggest companies in the country, they just had W-2 employees. Then there started to be a little hybridization, or a noticeable increase in hybridization, where people would be subcontracting or using trade partners to do some of the work. And now it's interesting when you look into some of the most robust businesses that are staying ahead of the curve with the highest profit numbers, they tend to run hybrid models. And sometimes it's even trifurcated, which is full-time W-2s, part-time W-2s, and subcontractors. And there's a huge debate in our industry about, hey, do you use subs versus W-2s? And I think that's a complete wrong discussion. I think it's subs and W-2s, because they are all tools that we can use to help our clients. There's pros and cons of each. And I think if we're not capitalizing on every opportunity to win, I think we're really missing out.
Hey, Nick, can you talk a little bit about some of that debate? Because I think it is something I've heard a lot in my travels recently. So can you talk a little bit about maybe overcoming some of those, the false belief that, subcontractors, it's not the way to go, or it is the way to go. So can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, and I speak really openly. You guys know me. I have a foot in trades version 1 and trades version 2. So I came up in a trades where old grumpy men screamed at you. And that was what the trades were known for 100 years, right? And now we're getting into a completely different version 2 of the trades. Rabid entrepreneurs, diversity, thought leaders, things like this. And before, it always used to be an either or. And I speak openly because I used to have those stereotypes of subcontracting, which is that's the hack way to do it. They'll never live up to your standards. They're not true craftspeople. Turns out, when you look around at our area, they are paint business owners just like you. They love the craft just like you. And we partner up with them and to form a greater good. And it's very sort of, it's a weird thought, because I am a subcontractor, right? It's very ironic that at one point, maybe 15, 20 years ago, I used to rally against subcontracting because I was uninformed. Meanwhile, I was a subcontractor for general contractors, and it was the same thing. So it couldn't have been more ironic that I was doing that. But you travel around the country, you meet people who partner up with master craftspeople all over the place, and you see the quality and speed of work and the client care they have. And then you're left with the idea that there's no excuses. This is not an either or, it's both for sure.
Great, thank you.
Now, the most interesting thing that I never hear anybody talk about is, when you do some cursory Google searches on the internet, a starting surgeon in Florida, the average compensation plan is about $203,000 a year. Now, this is built upon massive amounts of college, massive amounts of debt, massive amount of time investments. I mean, I'm assuming it's going to take that 7 to 10 years of college to get you to where that is, right? $200,000 a year, and you're taking people's lives in your hands. That is a high risk, high reward sort of thing. Now, theoretically, when you look at some industry benchmarks, if you run a $1 million painting business, you do $1 million worth of revenue in a year, that's somewhere between 7 and 10 employees, 3 to 4 to 5 different crews. If you can professionalize, if you can have some standard operating procedures, some basic business processes put in place, and you can run those 3 to 5 crews, you could potentially take home $297,000 a year with nothing more than an LLC, some liability insurance, and some basic business acumen. So, like, if you want to talk about opportunity, I don't know that you can make a better value prop for something like that.
So Nick, I have a question, because this comes up a lot too, is, you talked about the average paint company to start as, 1.5 folks, 1 to 3 years. I think there's this big push for, like, how do I get to the $1 million mark? And I think, it takes some time. Can you talk a little bit about just the growth of, like, a young company and getting to that point? Because I think some folks could see that, 297,000 and think, well, that's a pipe dream. I could never get there.
Well, it's a very simple math equation, and I walk people through it quite often. I mean, it's basically you take a simplified P&L, you take revenue, material, labor, overhead, and you punch in some basic benchmarks, and you try to follow them, and you're right there. What I find, what guys like Jason Paris and I, who's a trained economist in our industry, we've put together some steps in business companies, and typically what we find is that level one is people can get to about $500,000 in business. That's, I don't know, 2, 3, 4 painters, give or take. That's pretty easily. And if people kind of get their feet wet doing some employees, they find some basic systems. One of the worst things that can happen at this time in business is they have great success. Right. And the problem is that leads them to believe, well, listen, if 4 is good, I'm just going to do 20. And then the system breaks knowingly, because having a few of your friends and family work for you that share your core values is way different than out there finding people you don't know and training them in the industry. And then pretty soon you have to realize, well, business needs a certain amount of system. So the next step then is, typically people can get to that $500,000. We call this the cowboy phase next, cowgirl phase too now, which is I get to $1 million. And that's basically you have one business owner who works an immense amount of hours, who knows their stuff and can hold all the systems together. They can do the estimates, they can do the project management, they can do the recruiting of the employees, they can do everything together. But soon we find people in burnout there because you're working 80, 90 hours a week, you're doing everything, and everything in the business besides the painting falls back to you. So when your commercial insurance, which you didn't know happens, does an annual audit, all of a sudden you got to put together an immense amount of paperwork for this annual audit, and then your number goes up and down. That's one of those things that business owners don't know typically that they need to do, that just gets sprung on them every year. Then we find this really interesting phase where really competent cowboys and cowgirls can go to about $1.5 million. And then typically there's a fork in the road, which is burnout and destruction and leaving the industry. When then you see the industry stats, or somebody gets connected with the assets from Sherwin-Williams, the PCA, people like me, and they learn how to run a professional business. And then the next step usually goes to 3 million. So that's it. It's really interesting that you can really overlay a business model of humans and revenue over that sort of 500 million. But what's more interesting is when you overlay the human condition over it, where you find that most of our people stay at 1, a couple people venture out and go to 3 to 4 people, some people cowboy and cowgirl to 7 to 10, and then it really goes down to literally less than 1% of our industry ever makes it past that.
Very interesting.
And so what's really interesting is the longer I do this, the more I realize that success personally, professionally is all partnerships. It's all relationships. It's all, and it's that old sort of thing that has a bad stigma of who you know, but that can be thought of as, well, I'm getting special treatment. But who you know is who you've had a great relationship with, who you have this give and take relationship where you both support each other. And literally, when you look at all of the people that I employ, all my partnerships, the most meaningful ones have all come from other people I know. And you always think, well, as business gets bigger, I'm going to run out of those. Turns out, if you're a decent human being and you keep forging these relationships, your network actually grows. So one of the greatest things that I talk about, and one of the biggest unused resources that everybody has, is this insanely big network of Sherwin-Williams reps and the resources you guys have. So not only is there all the online resources, but literally there's a human that's on the ground that will come to your shop or office to help your business. And almost nobody takes advantage of this. So years ago, this is my 15th anniversary in business. I've been blessed with some of the most amazing reps and store managers ever. And people always ask why we have such a good relationship. And I'll say, well, because I don't call up my Sherwin-Williams rep and ask for free shirts and lower price on duration all the time. Like that is a really bad, that's a bad relationship when you only ask the other human for something. So what I've done, my strategy through all these years is, hey, as this business grows, last year, we want to grow 39%. I'll go to Eric, my Sherwin rep, and say, Eric, I'm willing to grow 39%. There's a couple pain points that I'd like to see if you can help me with. In turn, when we grow 39%, I would like to offer that added growth on top of what I already do to you. And now you have this relationship where you're offering something in return for something. And that's the basis of any relationship. And magically, when you be nice to other humans like that and capitalize on this relationship, great things happen and that expands. That person tells somebody else something nice. So honestly, one of the biggest boons to my business is having an entity that I deal with that I don't have to hold accountable. And you guys know what that is. If we have 10 direct reports, 2 of them are going to demand a whole lot of time out of you and maybe not a lot in return, right? And in my world, all we do is have direct reports. So if there's even a vendor that I don't have to check invoices, I don't have to check if the paint order is in, I never have to hold them accountable. That is the biggest blessing to a business owner, to not have to hold somebody accountable. And the relationship has been great. And I just want to personally thank you guys for what you do for our industry, and how you train your people to take care of us. I just wish people like me out there would actually take advantage of it.
Yeah.
So Nick, I love that. I love that story about, your relationship with Eric. I think the other thing, I hear a lot of contractors I talk to wish they got more leads from their rep. And I think really the core of that is that relationship that you built with Eric, right? And it's built on mutual trust and really an understanding that, look, we're all in this together, and how can we both succeed? So I don't know if you have any thoughts on that, and providing leads to other contractors, and how that works.
Yeah, and that's one of those things where I'm very upfront and honest with my rep, because I would love to come to you guys and say, hey, can you send me all of the subcontractors and also give me all of my work? That would be great, right? That'd be great. We can't, I'm one of 200 to 300 painting companies that my rep calls upon in the area. And there's multiple reps in my area. So I don't see it as a decent human being thing to go to your rep and force them or expect them to solve all your problems. Now, it's great when we have that, but the little more unsatisfying thing is you lay the groundwork for a good relationship, and magically things like that happen. And especially when I have open and honest conversations with Eric in my store, and even his leadership team here, where it's like, guys, listen, I know that people call you and ask for stuff all the time. If any of that stuff is available, I will certainly work with you. If you send me a lead or you send me a subcontractor, I'm going to take care of them. We have that relationship. And because we have that relationship of me taking care of people, magically you find yourself with more of that. But I always lay it out up front, which is like, listen, it's not an expectation, but if we can ever work together on it, that's great. And I think that's a better way to do a relationship.
So Nick, I've been doing a lot of reading. I get articles in my inbox every day about the industry. And one of the things that I think there's a lot of anxiety around is leads and the quality of leads changing. So if I'm a painting contractor and it's early 2024 and I'm starting to feel that pressure, what advice do you have?
Oh, this is interesting. So I've been around just long enough to see that this is not how it's always going to be. And in fact, these tides change, right? So the same thing we're talking about, where's all the jobs? 10 years ago, we were talking about where's all the employees, right? And then we magically find a way through the decent human being theory and apprenticeship to do that. And yeah, I've felt that too, which is interesting. I'm connected, and I'm the moderator of multiple Facebook groups with 100,000 plus painters in them. And all I do is look through there to find what the zeitgeist is in those particular groups. And it is completely switched from where's all the good employees to where's all the good jobs. Now, here's the thing. If you are, the thing we know, this is a very unsatisfying answer that I give to my fellow master craftspeople and paint business owners. If you are a professional business, if you have done the 6 to 7 steps that all other businesses do in the United States, these things are not mysteries to you. And all you see them as another problem where feelings and data can solve it. And the same way that we solved the labor crisis, we've solved leads now too. And it's relationships. It's having a system, it's working that system, it's doing that scientific process of analyzing, creating an experiment, analyzing the results from that experiment, forming another experiment, and then keep that going. So again, if we can't find people, we try a bunch of stuff. If you don't learn from it, you're stuck. If you do learn from it, then you keep iterating off that. Same thing with leads. We went from word of mouth, repeat, referral, which almost everybody does, up to 500,000, sometimes even to 1 million, to then running out of leads and having to try marketing. We do very tightly controlled marketing experiments. We look at the cost per lead, cost per estimate, cost per completed job, and we put our money that has the highest return. And we continually do that every 3 months because the industry changes, right? So it's a lot of work. It's an infinitely solvable problem. Are you professional enough to just collect the data, look at it, and make informed decisions? And that's a tough conversation for our industry, because what everybody wants is, where's the magic spot for leads that I can shovel money into and it solves my problems? Doesn't exist. You guys are marketers. You understand that's not how it works.
I think that's a really good point you bring up of, the referrals will get you so far and the word of mouth, but then really becoming more intentional about how you spend your money, where you're looking for leads, and really investing in the places where there's the best opportunities. But you do have to track it and have a system. So before we go over to the live portion of our conversation, because that's really the most exciting part where all of our guests get to ask you questions. Is there anything else that we should cover? Jeff, any other questions, or Nick, anything else that you're seeing in the industry right now that's on your mind and your heart?
Yeah, well, I will say, there are things that I'm noticing that I do not control that are just trends, and there's things that we're trying to control. The things that we can have an effect on through the Painting Contractors Association and through Sherwin-Williams is the immense amount of work on diversity and inclusion in our industry. There are a whole pile of wonderful stats where the trades are only a few percentage women, right? Painting is 2 or 3x that. We have 2 to 3 times more women here than most other trades. Also, the pay is amazing. It's almost 1-to-1 parity, where typically you might find stats in other industries where there's actually differences of pay. So painting is way ahead of the natural economy and the other trades. The things we can control in the PCA, we've started amazing amounts of initiatives for Spanish speakers, for women in paint, for commercial contractors and our master craftspeople. And we just had 2 kickoff events. As the chairman of the board of the PCA, one of my main 3 things was including these thought leaders that aren't currently at the table. And so starting about a year and a half ago, we said, we're going to start reaching out to the women and the Spanish speakers. Those are the 2 main groups that we're not focusing on. More to follow. We had 2 initial events this year. Last minute sort of things. 100 women showed up in Nashville and 150 Spanish speakers showed up in Florida on a moment's notice like that. So we've only scratched the surface of this, and that is the future. It's the one thing. We did a sensing session for the board of directors of the PCA, and we realized that this industry is being innovated by servant leaders, people who are members of the community, who want to reach out, help other people. And if we don't include these servant leaders, they're going to find somewhere else to give their time. So we're just trying to make a place for these servant leaders, these Spanish speakers, these women in paint, the commercial contractors, to park their time and innovate this industry. And it's working very well.
Nick, I had a follow-up question to something you said earlier. You said that most businesses will fail 1 to 3 years. If you were talking to somebody that was just joining the industry, what's the one thing you would tell them to do to avoid being in that 1 to 3 year failure bucket?
My mind says job costing, Jeff, but
I knew you were going to go there.
I know you're. But honestly, to me, it's like 2 years ago, I probably would have screamed job description, job costing, goal setting and review meetings. But that's just like clinical things that you stumble across. Connect with other humans. The humans in this industry, Sherwin-Williams, other painters, the PCA, they saved my life over the years. The second you can actually look back on a professional chart in my 31 years in the industry, and I basically was unintentional, plodding along, working more and more hours, making less and less money. The second I got involved with other painters, with my paint rep, with the PCA and you guys, it's a hockey stick chart. I become a better human. I become a better husband, father, friend, business owner, master craftsperson. The people there will hold you accountable. The people will inspire you. So the thing that I did bad, Jeff, was I thought all these humans were my enemy. Anybody else who had a paint sign on their van was stealing food from my children. That is the worst. You guys laugh. It's so obvious to me now. That is such a regressive mindset to have. Sadly, that is a lot of our industry. That's where we come from. It doesn't even make our industry bad. It's just not obvious that you would reach out and connect. Connecting has changed my life. Job costing will follow.
Right.
That's a close second, right?
Yeah,
well,
close second.
Thank you so much. So we're going to move over to the live portion of the webinar now. As I mentioned, across the top of your screen, there's a little button on the left that says chat, and you can add all of your questions there. Nick and Jeff are both going to join us, so we'll see you over in the lives shortly. Welcome, everyone. Hey, Nick, how are you? Nice to see you again.
Oh man, really good. It's always good to be here with you guys, and just thank you for this opportunity.
Absolutely, absolutely. Hello, Jeff. Nice to see you again.
Hey, Christine, good to see you guys. Nick,
Yeah. So
looking forward to see you in a couple weeks at PCA Expo. Hopefully, you're going to plug that today.
Yes, absolutely. That is a thing that you and I love. I will see you there, Christine, as well too, I believe.
yes, I am presenting for the
Awesome.
first time at PCA. Well, second time because we did Women in Paint, but yeah, very excited.
Love it.
This is our favorite part of our attendees of the webinars. They love the live Q&A with our guests. And Nick, I would say your webinar with us today sold out very quickly. So I want to make sure we have time to answer a lot of their questions. But then also, I would love for you to go over a little bit about PCA and give a little plug for that. So I know we had a couple questions initially. I'm going to have you, just because some people don't read the chat, I'm going to start there. But one of the questions from Miles was, where do you invest in leads and what's the best place to market your business?
This is the hot topic, just like we talked about in the webinar. Like, people still need people, but the entire conversation has switched from where are all the good employees to where are all the good projects. And so what I've done over the years is a very careful scientific process of marketing. And I feel weird talking into two marketing professionals. This is just a simple painter from flyover country, but we would have what I would consider a fairly sophisticated system of about 13 areas, and they're bifurcated between areas that are very expensive and scalable, think Google AdWords, and areas that are almost free and not scalable, think my local newspaper. So when we think about this, people always are looking for that magic treasure chest, right? Where can I get cheap leads? Where can people solve this problem for me? And getting jobs is the same thing as getting people, which is it's a recruiting process. You need to put forth time and money towards it in the same way that we, market to employees. So yeah, I tap about 13 different things. Some are free, some are very expensive, some take a lot of effort, some take a little, but in the end, they actually produce all the leads we need to keep a whole pile of people busy here in the winter through Minnesota.
Excellent.
Hey, Nick, if I could add just a little bit, it's interesting here at Sherwin-Williams, we do a fair amount of research around various industry topics. And this is one that we've actually dug into quite a bit. And to quantify some of the things that you're saying, not everything has to be paid marketing, right? When we look at where homeowners found the last contractor they hired, generally it's personal experience with that contractor, it's friends and neighbors, it's a referral, it's from other contractors. So like that's a lead source that frankly we don't cultivate as purposefully as we could, having friendships with carpenters and plumbers and electricians and other tradespeople.
Even realtors, yeah.
Absolutely, realtors, yeah. And then also up there is things like yard signs and van wraps. I mean, again, those are things that there is a cost to them, but they're relatively low cost items, but they help to create your presence in a market. And believe it or not, it helps with that referral, that pass along value. How often do you get passed along through a neighborhood, right? And a lot of it is that referral, but it's also, creating that presence that you're looking for. So I would echo, our data shows the same thing. It's a blend of, free and, doesn't have to be high cost methods.
Well, and I love that too, because this is the hot topic in the industry. And the thing that I have been doing is these experiments. And about 18 months ago was the peak of my marketing spending. I saw that we do not have extra time. So I levied a lot of money to try to solve this to save my time. And we were getting diminishing returns at a point. We collected all the data. So we found where that drop off of diminishing returns was. I brought my marketing spend down 60%. We got the same amount of leads and we increased our relational efforts. So now instead of me shoveling money into these things, we still do a lot of that. But now, just like you said, I think people always overlook the 3 appointments I have with contractors and designers this week, the 12 phone calls I make to potential partners in the industry, sending out thank you cards, email campaigns, things like that, using my effort instead of all that money. And now, like I said, we took our marketing spend down 60% and we've never had more leads. So.
Yeah. Word of mouth, it's invaluable for sure. So the second question from Alex is the biggest change you've noticed since starting your show, Ask a Painter. What is it?
This is huge. As I travel around the country, business owners are getting smarter, they're getting younger, they're getting more diverse, and they're coming into knowing some things that are obvious already. Like when I used to travel around 2 years ago, 3 years ago, I would say, who job costs here? And there'd be two weirdos in the back, right? And now it's literally half the room. It is such a remarkable increase in that. People start off with the abundance mindset of let's make friends in the industry. We know that we should have a separate checking account for our business. We filed an LLC, things like that. So I'm looking at the basic level and competencies of the humans coming into this trade, and I'm seeing a remarkable increase in their capabilities.
The professionalism.
Christine, I'm going to actually tie into another question here that was thrown out. Nubia asked, what's the best way to connect with the competitor without having that awkward, tense conversation? I agree networking is key, but in this industry, it's competitive. What advice do you recommend? And I think that really ties into what you were just talking about there.
So there's two things. There are things you can do as a privateer to do that, and there's things that we have already created for you as an industry. So the privateer stuff is, I think about the world of social media. I have been going hard for a decade on social media. Connections turning into acquaintances and then turning into friends is the pipeline for that. So a connection is you like somebody's post, you become friends, maybe even follow them on all the social media platforms. And then pretty soon you start messaging one another. Maybe you see some of their vans around the area, you become an acquaintance. The second you show up to an in-person event and actually shake their hand, you have the potential of becoming friends. And I've seen myself in the industry go from all these Minnesota painters, from all of us know each other, we see our vans. Somebody took the step a long time ago to create a gathering group in our area. And this is what the Painting Contractor Association did, which is we used to have a bunch of chapters and councils and networks around there. And slowly they just died out with the graying of the industry, right? And now we have reinvigorated this with called gathering groups. So there's a gathering group for every state. In Minnesota, we were the initial one. I think there's 400 contractors and we get together 4 times a year. You guys are a huge partner in that. We facilitate meetings at your facilities. We do we have the world headquarters of Graco right down the road here. So we get to see the paint sprayer robots and everything. And yeah, we can get 100 local contractors together because years ago we started with connections that became acquaintances. And now literally they are friends. What you could call my biggest competitor in my hometown is now one of my closest friends in the industry because of just that. And it all takes you to put aside the ego, reach out to another person and start talking.
And I like that you say, Nick, it takes time, right? Like these things don't happen overnight, right? You've been at this for a decade, the social media piece of it. And I think sometimes people are looking for a quick fix. It's not really where it's at. So I appreciate you saying that.
Yeah, especially with a bunch of introverted Minnesotans.
Okay, so here's a question from Kathy. Do you have a tool to help prepare basic estimates? We are very good, but mostly because of experience.
Yeah,
I'll put that to you, and then we've got some things too.
Oh, exactly. So 3 things, which are, I'm a glutton for punishment. So I make all of my own resources. It's usually based on a series of spreadsheets. There are an amazing amount of software companies that offer this, but one of the most underutilized, undersung resources in the industry is actually you guys. You have a free estimating tool that any contractor right now can get. And it's one of those things like virtual color consults, the estimating thing. You can get on your platform, create an estimate and send it out with a super professional presentation. And I know a lot of people use it. My opinion, not enough people use it.
And we'll make sure that we link that in the chat too, so folks can easily access that. But yes, I was actually going to say our bidding tool. It's a really great, simple tool. You doesn't have to overcomplicate anything. So we'll put that in the chat shortly. Looking at this, talked about the competitor. So what system, this is from David, what system are you currently using for your business? Are you using something like Paint Scout or Drip Jobs? And what other tools are you utilizing alongside your system for your painting business?
Yeah, so I'll answer that, and then I'll do the step back answer to that. The answer to that is my my business is based in Google's. I use a bunch of Sherwin-Williams tools to supplement. I use other apps to supplement, but I have not signed on to an enterprise software, a CRM like that, and it is an intentional choice. It's not because I don't like them or think I can do better. My business is changing so fast. I need modularity, and I'm not afraid to put forth my effort into creating a series of documents and spreadsheets, keeping it simple to do that. Now, taking a step back from that, what I should say about this is there's an amazing amount of resources. You guys have them. There's outside vendors. These things on their own, if you pay your X amount of dollars for the resources that are paid out there, are not going to solve all your problems. In order for these bits of software and apps to work, you need to be 100% compliant. You need to manage them. You need to constantly look into them. I just want to set the stage properly that these things in itself will not solve all of your problems. In fact, they can complicate them and cause more problems if you're not compliant with them.
Yeah, I think that's a really great call out too, Nick. A lot of I was just having a conversation with someone. People try to buy their way into a solution, and you can buy the most sophisticated software system platform, but if you don't have the time to invest in using it or to put the good data into it, you're going to have a really big bill on your hands and not much value at the end of the day. So I think that's really great advice.
It is an exciting time, though, I got to say, in our industry, because there are more solutions than ever, and a lot of them are really specific to our world. So, Paint Scout, there's a Work Glue, and there's a number of them that
Document Rocket and all of them,
are out there. And to your point, it's not a set it and forget it. You can't just put a quarter in the machine and it does the work for you. But it is exciting because 15, 20 years ago, those didn't exist, and it's exciting.
Yeah, and one thing I've actually been talking about with my team a lot is again, what a great time to be alive, what a great time to be a contractor, all the opportunities in the world. But let us not forget, in the age of artificial intelligence, that the benefit and the prioritization of organic intelligence. And I think a lot about this with some of the systems, whereas we sometimes have the default of I need a piece of software that will do all this for me, when really what we should be thinking about is what is the right mix of automation, tech, and software and apps, and then how much human side is that? Where does that machine stop and the human start? And in my company, every one of our systems, project management, estimation, project coordination, office staff, even painters, there's a different ratio of that, and we monitor it carefully. So just, again, I think we all agree there that these aren't the end all and be all, but they can facilitate and force multiply you in a way that is amazing if you comply with them.
Okay, so let's see. We've got Tim. He says, I don't believe that our repeat is where it should be compared to our competitors. We have seen situations where some of our subcontractors have poached customers and wonder how much of this has cost us. Is this typical, and what's the best way to handle?
Yeah, and if I heard that right, is this residential or residential repaint? Is that what they were talking about, or did they not mention it?
Tim did not mention it, but Tim, if you're still here, let us know what you mean.
Okay, I get it. They mentioned repeat. So stats for you, data plus feelings. That's a feelings-based sort of statement, right? The data would actually help you understand how to weight that. But in my company, 25 to 40% of all of my completed jobs are word of mouth, repeat, and referral. And again, those are things that are infinitely cheap, not scalable. I mean, again, they're scalable in the fact that the longer you stay in business, the more you get. But if you guys told me double your word of mouth, repeat, and referral next week, I don't know that I could do it, right? That's a thing that I don't control. So I would apply some data to that. We run about a $3.3 million company, 25 to 40% of our jobs. We're probably looking at that somewhere between $900,000 to $1.4 million of revenue this year will end up being word of mouth, repeat, referral. Our business is very, whether we like it or not, residential repaint is actually a very transactional sort of thing. You don't necessarily always have a customer for life. You need to make it easy for him. So that some client works with another painter, I wouldn't take as a sign of that you're doing something horrible. They may just forgot your name. I mean, the old proverb is, hey, tell me the name of the nurse that delivered your child. That's a very important human. None of us can probably come up with that. And now when somebody says, tell me the name of your house painter, magically, if they can't remember it, okay, now that's the priorities of the homeowner. So again, that's why you guys were talking about the marketing, the constant marketing everywhere to make it easy so they trip over you is very important.
We've got another question from Nubiat. It says, what systems would you recommend to showcase colors for a residential commercial painting? Most everyone is visual now.
Yeah, this is easy. You guys know we've talked about this before. The number one priority of my clients is color. And we have tailored a business around this. Literally on our estimates are one page on the front and our contract on the back. And on the bottom of our contract, we list out 3 promises. The first one in the boldest letters, we help with color, we move furniture, we clean up after ourselves. And I know you guys are Sherwin-Williams, you guys are the paint people. What we didn't include in there is we use duration mat on the walls, because that is not as important of a priority as actually color. So when color is number one, you need to help your clients. If you show up and say, that ain't my problem, I don't deal with color, that's not going to be helpful. Now, you don't have to pick them for them, but again, along the lines of, free estimating resources, you guys offer free virtual color consults in most of the regions, at least my region here. And literally, you guys have a free resource for the number one problems or thoughts of our client. And I know people use it. My impression is not enough people are taking advantage of this.
Yeah, I would say for those who are listening right now, if you do have the Sherwin-Williams Pro Plus app, and I'm so sorry it's not available in Canada yet, I saw it in the chat. If you look at the bottom, there's an area that says tools. And if you click on that, there's something that says Pro Color Toolkit. This is one of the most underutilized solutions that we have, that when pros find out about this, it blows their mind. So there's 3 things you can do with that. You can either view it, or you can send a link to your homeowner. That's a way for them to view the top 50 colors, because what's the one question people usually ask? What are the most popular colors? Yeah. Number 2, they can order chips online and have them sent directly to their home for free. And then the third thing that they can do is sign up for a virtual color consultation, which is available in the US and Canada. We also have a few folks who will provide them in Spanish and French. So that's very exciting for everyone. But what's great about that is it's a simple, hey, I was thinking of you, following up on an estimate. Color can be tricky. Here's a link to a virtual color consultation if you're having a hard time. Providing support. I call it like the Jerry Maguire effect, like help me help you, right? You don't want to be in a position where you're selecting color, but as a part of your value proposition as a company, you want to be able to support them and guide them using the services available to you. So Pro Color Toolkit's a big one.
Word of mouth repeat referral is huge. We have one document in my company that has 40 other trusted people, color consults, resources, carpenters, bricklayers on there that we've vetted over the years. We don't do any of this stuff. Right? But it doesn't mean the conversation has to stop with the client. Like, oh, client, lucky for you, you stumbled across somebody who has spent 30 years vetting these people. And boy, do I have some fantastic links for you. So yeah, you don't have to, even if you don't do it, you can be a resource to your client, even by just telling them about other decent human beings.
Yes. So we've got about 10 minutes left. We're going to give people some time to add some more questions. But Nick, can you share a little bit about PCA Expo, what it is, what it's done, the PCA has done for your business, and what folks should know?
10 minutes only? No, so listen, you guys know it is near and dear to my heart. I've been a member for a lot of years. I was elected to the board a bunch of years ago. I am now currently the board chair. I am leading the vision and the strategy of this 140-year-old nonprofit that exists because we want to build better contractors. So we are the holdings of the standards of the industry. So if anybody ever wants to know what a properly painted surface is, sometimes clients have a differing opinion than us. There's actually a standard out there that we put in our contracts. We are the holders of training, both painters training, the craft training, and of business training. And we're also the holders of the in-person events. The biggest one, our Super Bowl, is the Expo in a couple of weeks. And this will be in Orlando. You guys are a champion sponsor of that. You will have an amazing presence there. You'll have an amazing presence in the trade show. And one of the things that, again, along the lines of your estimating app, your color assistance, virtual color consults, one of the most underutilized and in my opinion, not talked about enough thing is the Thursday night gala that you guys put on. You guys take care of this industry in a big way. It is like the Expo is a whole week long event, and it culminates that night, the night before our big charity event, with you guys rolling out the red carpet, taking care of the people that take care of you all year round. And it just bowls people over. I mean, I just got news of where it's going to be. It's an amazing place. You guys spared no expense. You're so thoughtful on all this stuff. And it's literally like the crescendo of an entire week of our Super Bowl. So if nobody's been to the expo, it's going to blow your mind. If you've never been to the expo and never been to the Sherwin-Williams Thursday night event, yeah, your life will be changed.
All right, we got a few more questions. So I'm with a smaller design firm. This is Jackie. How can we be most valuable to our paint trade partners? Ooh, we love that question, Jackie.
Hand over those jobs. Hand over those jobs. No, really, it's one of those things where painters are going to be like, hey, they think sometimes about these relationships in simplistic terms where, hey, listen, I'm going to be a resource for you. Give me those jobs. But really, like I talked about with my paint rep, it's got to be a reciprocal sort of thing. So again, we have our curated list of designers, free color resources from you guys that we use. You want to get on their list, they want to be on your list. So really it's a partnership. And the best thing you can do, like when somebody uses a virtual color consult and we get colors and we move on, that's great. If for some reason they don't want a virtual or they need a human there, the resources, the designers that we partner with in our company for that level of service, we have regular meetings with them to tell them we use Sherwin-Williams duration matte on the walls. This is our trim process. If there's accent walls, we need to redo the price. So make sure that when you're going selecting colors with them, that you don't pick 9 colors a room without the price change. So getting your systems in sync with theirs and their systems in sync with theirs is a good partnership. So they're not out causing chaos for you. So that's honestly, and just understand that a lot of paint businesses are very small, 1 to 2 people. They're likely unprofessional. And this would just be my plea to any professional who wants to interact with our trade. Just like be there as a resource for us. We're open, we're honest, be a little sympathetic, empathetic. We're working 60, 70 hours a week. We're starting families. We're trying to grow these businesses, and hang tight with us. We're really good craftspeople. We're not always the best business owners. Hang in there with us. We'll got you. See us through it, and we'll be there to support you.
And Jackie, we might be having a webinar in the future about designers and painters and how they can work together. So stay tuned for that. Okay, we have another question here. Nick, what are key factors that can help a painting contractor stand out without the homeowner comparing or looking at you like another contractor providing an estimate?
Ooh, professionalism. This is, I mean, literally when I survey the industry, there's 300,000, give or take, painting companies in the US. 99% of them are single owner operators. I mean, if I'm being honest, we're all pretty good painters. We can all give a pretty good product. It's a service and the professionalism. So again, are you on social media? Do you have a website? Are you easy to find? This is the new word of mouth, like you were saying, Jeff. Word of mouth happens at the office, but also the second they hear about a person, they go right to Google and look in. And now, how easy are you to find, right? How many reviews do you have? Is your website laid out professionally? Can you request a quote electronically? And then the service, high velocity communication. Like everything I'm going to say right here is a whole series of no duh, basic, boring, mundane things that we all know we should do, like diet and exercise, but yet the best companies do these things consistently. Have a good electronic presence, answer your phone high velocity, deliver on a simple promise, stay connected, lead with empathy, have standards, and just be there in business as a professional, doing all the job costing, doing all the accounting to make sure that your level of stress is not focused on, is my business going to be here a year from now? It's focused on how can I provide the best experience and coding systems for my clients.
Great. This is a very tactical question, but one that often comes up. It's from Javier. How much do you charge per square feet?
Yeah, so interestingly enough, we have a very sophisticated estimating system that 5 years ago, we did all the measurements. We actually use an app to measure the outside of every house down to the square inch. We collected all the job costing. We collected our estimating tools. We constantly looked at it every week to see what was profitable, what wasn't. We adjusted those prices. We now have an estimating system so sophisticated, at least in our industry, that we've moved beyond measuring anything and into unit prices. So I wish I had a great, number for that. But now when we look at, I'm a residential repaint company. There's basically only 9 different types of houses that we paint on the outside. And I actually created a picture book of these where here's the measurements of these houses because we've collected them. Here's an image of the house. Here's typically how much paint it takes. And here's how much labor it takes. And we have such a tight data set of this because we collect the simple job costing stuff. that now we've moved beyond. We don't need to measure a house. We can get within 10% just by looking at these styles of houses and getting them there. Now, I know that's an unsatisfying answer. If you go to the internet, people are going to tell you, well, you're unprofessional if you don't know this. You're going to have to do this for yourself, right? These numbers are infinitely comparable. They are found out by measuring the houses, tracking your time, and then doing job costing. Job costing is looking up materials and labor for each job and then comparing it to a benchmark. Now, the interesting thing is when I travel the country, we do anonymous pricing experiments. Everybody thinks they have a pricing secret. All the big metro areas around the US are plus or minus 5 to 10% difference in prices. So if you think you have a pricing secret, it's likely you do not. You will find some pricing variations between St. Louis, Missouri and the Bay Area in California. But when we look at the aggregated data, there's people that say, I have this secret pricing formula. It's likely you do not. And I don't think I do either.
So, okay, couple minutes. I'm going to try to get in many as we can. So does the price change of rentals, flips, renos?
Here's the deal. This is an opinion of mine. That price is dictated not by you, but by the people administering those things. Whether you like it or not, even when you talk about like new construction, what is the square foot pricing for new construction? What should I charge? Here's the thing. Charge whatever you want. That number already exists. By the time there's management companies who control these rental properties, there's general contractors who control the home build. By the time you get a work order to repaint one of these rentals, that client and that management company have already set a budget. It's probably going to be very low. So you charge whatever you want, but that number exists. And that management company's goal is to charge this and find you to do it for here, maintaining their margin. Now that's not evil. That's how business works. But understand that you have less control over this, just like housing prices. Typically a new construction in my area, a paint job is worth 5% of the cost of a new house, give or take. So you can charge 10% if you want, but that number already exists. And by the time you see the estimate, that general contractor has sold that budget to a client. And then the general contractor's job is to find somebody that, if it's a $50,000 paint job, to find somebody to do it for 25. That's how it works. So again, get out there, get after it, do it, but understand that you have way less control over that price.
Tim asks, how much of a business should be referrals?
I would say up to $500,000. It should probably be 100%, give or take. If you're in business for more than 5 years, 6 years, 7 years, you might be able to push it to 800,000 in revenue to $1 million with referrals. But there's almost no business I know that does word of mouth repeat referral $1 million in less than 3 years. So I guess the further answer is as much as possible.
Yeah. And I would think those are the best quality leads, right? I mean, I always talk about this when I'm meeting with contractors, but you're in someone's home. That's a very intimate place to be. And to have someone refer you to say, I know Nick, he's a great guy. He's going to be professional. He's going to show up. He's going to, do what he says he's going to do. That's going to mean so much more to me. So I think that word of mouth, but then also you mentioned referrals too. If you don't have a way to, or a system to collect and get Google reviews, you are missing out. I think it's so important, and you can't be afraid to ask for those. I was talking to our friend Michael today, Nick. I know you were with her a couple of weeks ago, and she said, we actually start out every job and say, our goal is to get a 5-star rating from you at the end of this. And then circling back on it towards the end. So it's like asking and putting that in their mind. So, don't overestimate or underestimate the how important it is to get those reviews on Google as well.
Huge.
Yep. So we have 1 minute left. And I'm gonna leave that minute to you, Nick. What do you want to leave? Some parting words of wisdom for our guests today. What do you want to share?
You need to make connections. I did this the most lonely, the most alone way a human could do this. And the second I started reaching out to you guys, to other painters in the industry, not only did my business and professional life go better, I met true friends. Like my closest friends now are people I've met from my professional career. And this goes beyond revenue, profit, all that other stuff. My life is better now because I took a step out of my comfort zone. I reached out, I set my ego aside, I put aside the thought that I had secrets, and I started being a decent human being to other people. And this doesn't just include other painters. It includes paint reps. It includes our vendors. It includes our community and everything else. And especially the PCA. The PCA is literally a lighthouse for servant leaders and people like us. And that's why you guys are there as a champion sponsor. And that's why I've devoted a large portion of my life right now to this organization as a servant leader. It means so much to me. Anybody who's made it through the doors of the PCA is a believer and is there and has had their life changed. And everybody who hasn't, hopefully you can have the experience I did.
Thank you, Nick. We did put some resources in the chat. One of them is a link to learn more about PCA. There's some other great tools that we offer through Sherwin-Williams, things like online painting pro training courses, a job board. As Nick mentioned, use your store managers, your reps. We're here to help. We want nothing more than to see this industry continue to grow and thrive. So thank you so much for being with us here, Nick, and we will see you in 2 weeks. And as a reminder, this webinar is being recorded and will be posted to YouTube by the end of this week. So thanks, everybody. Have a great afternoon.
Hey, guys.
Thanks for the opportunity.
Bye-bye.